Okay, so this exercise will do it little different. So where what I've done here, I have not given you a tabular form data, right? I've given you a data like in case you carry out this research, right? Like you will kind of find out the data in your Google Form, right? Once you download Google Form, the data point will be in a CSV file, text file, and it will be something like this, right? So data, it is not that somebody is going to create a table for you for your summer internship or for anywhere, any kind of project which you are doing, right? Data will be always in this kind of raw form and might be little bit more messy than this. I've just cleaned it a little bit. Now what happens? This is a, let's say you have kind of created a questionnaire, right? And you have three questions only. Specify the gender of the person, specify average number of hours spent in a week on social media, Facebook, Instagram, any other kind of social media. Please specify average number of orders placed in e-commerce site, right, in a week, right? Sorry, in a month, right? How many orders in Amazon, Flipkart, Myntra in a month, right? So these are the three questions we have asked, right? And we have got some answers. So how to take this data and carry out the data analysis? But before that, obviously, we have to put our hypothesis, right? Because you put your hypothesis first, prepare a question, collect data. So this is the data which you have collected. Now we are going in carrying out data analysis, right? Can anybody tell me some examples of hypothesis here or research objective? Let us start with research objective, then we'll jump into the hypothesis part. Can anybody tell me if I have these kind of questions? What can be a typical research objective for me? So which kind of variable is this? Specify your gender. Gender will be which kind of variable?
Categorical.
Categorical.
Categorical. Which kind of variable is this? Specify average number of hours spent in a weekend. So average time spent in social media. See the answers how it is given and tell me which kind of variable is this.
Metric.
Okay. Obviously it has two answers, right? Metric or categorical. So Aliba is telling it is metric, whether it is metric or categorical. So which kind of data is this? Metric variable or categorical variable?
I think categorical.
So why not metric?
Because they are mentioning less than, more than. That's why. Exact absolute value they are not mentioning.
Yes, so that's what we have discussed when we discuss scales, right? So categorical means nominal and ordinal. Metric means your interval and ratio. So whenever interval scale happens or ratio scale happens, I can measure the difference between two respondents. Here, if I say, let's say respondent number 2, who is a female, so she has told that less than she spends less than 5 hours in a week in Instagram or whatever other social media. Another female uh, who is here, she is telling more than 10 hours in a week. If I want to measure the difference between female who is in the 17th row and who is in the second row, can I measure the difference? I cannot measure the difference because I do not know when somebody says less than 5 hours, whether it is 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, or anything between them, right? It can be any number less than 5. When somebody says more than 10, theoretically it can be any number between 10 to 24 multiplied by 7, right? Till that number, right? Theoretically. So unless I know exactly know that number, I cannot measure the difference. And if I do not measure the difference, it will be either into nominal or ordinal. So then the question is whether this is nominal variable, though we do not, if it is categorical, we can use uh, some kind of data. We do not have to get into that detail, but just for curiosity, whether it is a nominal variable or a ordinal variable, nominal scale or ordinal scale. So if I ask specify average number of hours spent in a day, answers as less than 5 hours, 5 to 10 hours, more than 10 hours. So these are the three answers, whether it will be nominal scale or ordinal scale. Anyone? What kind of scale it will be?
Ordinal.
Why not nominal? So why the answer is ordinal? Why it cannot be nominal scale? So nominal is only for identification, right? I cannot. So sorry, I got disconnected. Yeah, the question is why it is a nominal, not an ordinal scale. Sorry, your answer was it was a ordinal scale. So the question is why it I cannot tell it as a nominal scale. Okay, I will not spend much time on this because I have repeated this thing many times. So that is up to you whether you are revising it or not. Believe me, how much important it will be when you do the data analysis. Nominal is only for identification. Ordinal means when I can put them into order. All the scales will have nominal property, right? Only question is whether it has a ordinal or ordering property. If I know that somebody who is spending less than 5 hours in a week, another female is there who is spending more than 10 hours in a week, right? In the scale of how much time they spent on social media, I can order them. I can put them into different order. That yes, that person who is spending more than 10 hours in a week, she is spending more time than the other person who is spending 5 hours in a week or less than 5 hours in a week. But I do not know the difference. Once I know the difference, it will become an interval, and going forward, it can become a ratio scale also. But once I know that I can only order them, I do not know the difference. So it will be in the ordinal scale category. So either nominal or ordinal, it is a categorical scale, right? Categorical variable. Same thing with your specify average number of orders, right? So let me just try with only one variable, then we'll look into the other variable so that you can take as your homework, and you can do it in the next class. So I have two variables. One is gender, is categorical variable. Another is also a categorical variable. So I have two categorical variables, right? If you go and look into this, let's say you are not clear about what kind of data analysis you have to carry out, right? So go in a reverse way. So what kind of variable I have? I have one categorical variable, another categorical variable, right? I can find a relationship, right? If let's say research objective is not given, only the data points is given. I have one categorical variables, another categorical variable, then I can find a relationship between them, right? I'm not telling this is the only thing you can find out. There are other methods also, but at least whatever we are learning here, limited number of methods. So this is a possibility, right? Carrying out a cross tabulation, right? Whenever we are in a situation, my research objective is to find out our relationship between two variables, right? Relationship between two or three variables, then we are trying to find out, and both those variables in the categorical format, right? If it is in the metric format, then we'll go by the correlation. Let's say I have directly asked a question, what is your age? Mention in the completed number of years, and mention how many hours you spend on social media in number of hours. So all these were metric variable because age is also, let's say, 21, 22, 23. That is also a specific number. Your number of hours what you are spending in a social media, that is also a number. Then I could have gone for a correlation. But in this particular case, what has happened? I have asked about gender and I have asked about the time they spend in different groups, less than 5 hours, 5 to 10 hours, and above 10 hours, right? So in this kind of situation, categorical, we carry out something called cross tabulation or using chi-square test. So that step will like look into now. Oh, what is a cross tabulation? I guess that has already been covered in a QT class. So that is a repetition for you. But the point is when to use this, right? Whenever I'm trying to find relationship between two variables and variables are in categorical format, right? That is when we are using a cross tabulation, right? So going back to our data format, if I just look into column A and column B, I have one variable. Yeah.
Sir, if the dependent variable is categorical and independent is metric, then what method we will use?
Dependent variable sorry, can you please repeat? Dependent variable categorical, independent variable metric. Hello. Hello. Yes, Oliver, can you please repeat the question?
Yes, sir. I was asking that when a dependent variable is categorical and independent is metric, then what method we will use?
Okay, independent is metric and dependent variable is categorical, right? So there are other methods like discriminant analysis, which right now we are not covering. So there are certain advanced method, but yeah, one way to convert your metric variable, right? So whenever you have data in the metric variable or in the higher form, let's say interval or ratio, it is always feasible to bring it to a lower kind of variable. So what I mean by that, if let's say I have information about your income, I know exactly what is your parental income or family income in lakh of rupees or in thousand of rupees. I can put into groups. I can convert that into category less than 5 lakhs, 5 to 10, more than 10 to 15, or more than 15 lakhs. Then both of the variables will become categorical. Then I can use again cross tabulation. But reverse is not true. If I have a categorical variable, so let me ask in the other way. I want to carry out a correlation and I have this kind of situation. I have a dependent variable which is categorical and independent variable which is metric. Ideally, what should have happened? Dependent variable also should have been a metric. If I want to run a correlation, I cannot run that time. But in this particular case, what I can do, the independent variable which is metric, I can convert that. I can like transform that variable to a categorical variable. So I'll have two categorical variables, then I can find out the relationship between them. To answer your question, without transformation, if I want to do it, yes, there are methods. There is a methods of canonical correlation. There is a method called discriminant analysis. But that is as of now, we are not covering that. Next year, some of you, if you take marketing research, we will be covering that during that time. But with the limited whatever methods we know, we have to transform the variable to a categorical variable. Is this clear?
Yes, sir.
So now let us try to understand what do we mean by cross tabulation. So as the name suggests, cross tabulation means I'm creating a table basically, right? Cross means I'm creating a table where I have variables in rows and columns, two different variables in rows and columns, right? So that is the crossing part, crossing x variable with y variable and putting that into a table. So that is the meaning of cross tabulation. So what are the steps? When you have to use this, whenever you have two categorical variables, two or more categories of for each variable. Under each variable, you can have multiple groups, not necessarily two groups only, three groups, four groups can happen. Independence of observation, right? So we believe that there is no relationship between subjects in the each group. So this is what I'll explain when we take that example.
Sir, your voice is not audible.
Okay, just give me a moment. Network in college is not working again. Okay. Is it better now? Hello.
Yes, sir.
Okay. So the categorical variables are not paired in any way. So pre-test, post-test, that is when we use a two sample t-test because same respondent. So that is no two groups of respondent, right? So remember, whenever you are having cross tabulation, we are trying to find relationship. I cannot take a data, let's say blood sugar level, pre-breakfast and post-breakfast, and I'm trying to find a relationship between them. So that is when you cannot use a cross tabulation. So those group of respondent, remember what we discussed in the two sample test. Group of respondents are different. There is a independence between respondent. Relatively large sample size. Follow this. If you're anyhow for the exam point of view, I'll make sure that the numbers are maintained. But for your internship, or in case you are using for some of your project, unless each cell or majority of cells, let's say I have 10 cells, obviously 10, or let's say 9 cells, right? 3 in the row, 3 in the column. So I have total 9 cells. 80% of that. So minimum 7 cells out of that should have more than 5 number greater than 5. If some cells or more number of cells have 0, 1, 2, your results cannot be validated. Your results will not be a robust result. So some of you, I guess, you are using it for QT project, and in case you are using a cross tabulation and there are out of all the cells many cells which are vacant, which are zero, you can still get a result, but that result will not be a robust one, right? Make sure that the number of cells which you have, let's say I have 10 cells, 8 of them at least have number greater than 5, right? So these are the some few things you have to remember whenever you are carrying out your project, right? So what are the steps? Find out for each. So this is basically when to use a cross tabulation. Is the objective question to find out relationship between two variables? If my research objective is to find out relationship between two variables, my hypothesis again will be written in that format. Identify independent dependent variable. Are both the variables are categorical variable? So to answer Aliba what she was asking, in case I find out that one variable is categorical, other variable is metric, still cross tabulation is possible, but I have to transform. So whichever is metric variable, I have to transform that into a categorical variable. If yes, then we'll be using a cross tabulation method, formulate hypothesis, then write down your hypothesis, carry out hypothesis testing, right? So this is something again, we have to do it little bit manually. Find out expected frequency. So there is no specific data analysis method for cross tabulation. Some calculation has to be done step by step. Find out expected frequency for each cell using a formula. Calculate chi-square statistics. Again, I'll not get into this detail. Only one thing which you have to remember: degrees of freedom. Right? In a t-test, degrees of freedom was number of sample minus one. Right? Here, number of rows, right? Number of groups in your, so number of rows means basically how many groups are there, right? Minus one multiplied by number of columns. So how many groups in the columns? Minus one. Multiply that. So that will give you the distribution of degrees of freedom per a chi-square table, right? Then obviously the you have a critical value which is chi-square statistics, and you have a you have a chi-square statistic, that is test statistics. Then you have a critical value. Compare that. If your test statistics is greater than critical value, so always remember hypothesis testing, to find out test statistics, you find out critical value, compare them. Test statistics greater than critical value, reject null hypothesis, right? Then in case null hypothesis gets rejected, right? So can anybody tell me, if my research objective is to find out relationship between two variables, what will be my alternate hypothesis, what will be my null hypothesis? So if I want to, my research objective is to find out, let's say, relationship between whether gender and number of hours people spend on social media. That is my research objective. What will be my
Sir, I can say that the null hypothesis will be there is no dependence of gender with respect to the number of hours spent on the social media.
remember here we are not trying to find out the dependency, right? Though we write dependent independent variable, in statistics dependency or causality is a very big concept. So we do not generally use that. We say relationship, right? So null hypothesis will be there is no relationship between gender and number of hours people spend on social media. Alternate hypothesis will be, I'll say that yes, there is a relationship, because that is what I want to prove. My research objective is to find out, because that is something interesting. If I can find out, yes, depending upon your gender, depending upon your age group, the number of hours you spend on social media changes. So that is something interesting. That is something new which I can find out. So that becomes my alternate hypothesis. Null hypothesis, obviously, status quo, no relationship between gender and your number of hours you spent on social media, right? So first step to find out something called expected frequency. So anyhow, like we'll come back to this, the calculation part. Now what happens if you are carrying out a survey, you'll get results like this. Nobody is going to tabulate it for you, right? So most of you, I hope all of you know that how to change this to a tabular format. Click here, insert pivot table. Okay. So let's say I'll put my gender in my rows. Okay. And take this average number of hours spent on social media in columns, right? Then again drag this number, average time spent on social media, right? So if you see, find a table like this. So this is nothing but a cross tabulation, right? We have not done the statistics calculation, but this itself is cross tabulation. I'm putting two variables, one variable in rows, one variable in columns, right? That is nothing but a cross tabulation, right? Row column tabulation. So I have total 50 respondent. So what do we mean by independence of this? What do I mean by this? These 15 female. So this number, what does it mean? This, remember, this is no average. There is no calculation here. This is only the count data. If I go back here and value, for some of you it is showing as sum or average, go back to value field settings, select count. If let's say it is average or sum, change it to count, right? For some of you, in case it is showing as a sum or average, click here in the values, go to the value field settings, change it to count, right? So what actually we are trying to find, how many people are there? So that is a count data. How many female students are there who are spending 5 to 10 hours in a week? How many female students are there who are spending less than 5 hours in a week? How many female students are there, sorry, who are spending more than 10 hours in a week? So these are nothing but, no, it is not that average, or it is not a sum data. It is a count data. We are counting number of female students and number of male students, right? So when we are talking about cross tabulation, it is always about the count data. Be careful about that. In the other t-test, what we are trying to find, we are trying to find out the average, trying to compare whether averages are similar or dissimilar, whether average score of female students greater than male students by 3 marks or 5 marks. But here what we are trying to find out, whether the number of people in a particular group is more than the count number of people in a particular group is more than or less than particular other group, right? This is where cross tabulation is happening. Is this part clear? I hope all of you know how to create a pivot table, or any doubt. So I'm just replicating the table and putting it in a order manner, right? So always remember, it is better to, because if I go back to that pivot table, right? So 5 to 10 hours in a week, it is in the first row, first column, right? So I'm doing it in a little better way, putting that into a structured way, because less than 5 hours should come first, then 5 to 10 hours, then more than 10 hours, right? 5 to 10 hours, then above 10 hours. So how many female students are there who are watching less than 5 hours in a week? I'll go to here, 5 and 9, male students 9, 5, 9, 5 to 10 hours, 15, 10. More than 10 hours, 5, 6. So this is nothing but my final cross tabulation. So this is my step one. So for your exam point of view, this kind of data will be given to you. It is not that Excel file won't be given, it will be in Moodle. So this kind of information will be given to you. But reading this information, right? So here a typical question can be the tabular information of female students, gender wise information about time spent on social media is given, right? We want to understand whether there is a, so my research objective here will be, let's say one of my research objective is to understand whether there is a relationship between gender and time spent on social media. So this is what I want to understand, right? So what will be my alternate hypothesis? What will be my null hypothesis? My alternate hypothesis will be, yes, there is a relationship between, same thing, whatever I want to understand, that becomes my alternate hypothesis, right? Null hypothesis will become there is no relationship. Okay. So this is my hypothesis formation. Next step again, I have to find out what is my study aim. Study aim is to find relationship between two categorical variables. What are my variables? So which are my variables? What are my variables here?
Gender and hours spent.
So gender, so that is categorical. Hours spent on social media, that also in this particular case it is given as categorical, right? So how you know categorical? Because these are three groups. Hours spent on social media, this is three groups only. This is a categorical data. Gender, male and female, there are two values, two labels, that is also categorical data, right? So nowhere it will be mentioned this is categorical. So this is, you have to understand. So which will be my dependent out of these two variables?
Hours spent on social media.
So hours spent on social media is dependent. Gender is independent. Data analysis method will be cross tabulation, right? So as long as you are able to find out like this, right? So 50% of the mark is guaranteed for you, right? This part at least you have a clear understanding. So now again we'll replicate this table. Okay. Second step, we'll find out the expected frequency, right? Sorry, here expected. So if I go back here, what is my expected frequency? Number in the row, NR is the number in the row, the count in the row multiplied by number in the column divided by total number of count, right? So my total number is So I have 50 observations. So that is my total number of observations. So my expected frequency will be, sorry, here. So my total observations is 50. So when I'm calculating for this cell, for cell number, this D20, right? So when I'm calculating for this cell, what will my formula? The cell whichever here, whichever, so okay, I'm putting it here a little bit. The same structure. Let's say I want to find out the expected frequency for this cell. Which cell? Less than 5 hours a week for female student, right? The formula will be equal to sign whatever the number in the row, right? Number in the, what is my number in the row? Total number in the row, how much it is happening? 5 plus 9, 14, right? I can actually write it here. Total number in the row, what will be total number in the row? Number in the column. Okay. So this, let me highlight. So I'm just adding up the row number, sorry, adding up the row numbers, then here adding up the column numbers, right? So 25 is nothing but the sum of 5, 15, 5. 14 is nothing but the sum of 5 and 9. So this I have done for all the rows, all the columns, right? So I have total 3 columns, 2 rows, right? So when I'm calculating the expected frequency for this cell less than 5 hours a week and female, so I'll go to the corresponding column, right? So what is the corresponding column for this? This less than 5 hours in a week. What is the number there? 14. So 14 multiplied by, what is that corresponding row? I want to find out the number here, female 5 hours in a week. So female row, so the corresponding number is 25. So 14 multiplied by 25 divided by total number of observations. Total number of observations will always remain same, right? So that is 50. So same thing I'll try to find out for the second one. So 5 to 10 hours. So this is the second column, 25 multiplied by, again female, so 25 divided by my total number of observations, that is 50. Same thing here, 10 hours in a week, 11 multiplied by 25 divided by 50. 14. So here it will change because I'm looking into male row, right? Though the number is still same, 25, right? Okay. So these are the values I got, which is nothing but my expected frequency, right? So this is something which is observed, which is I am observing from my data, right? So this is observed frequency, right? So for the table of chi-square statistics, or the, so because why it is a chi-square statistics, we'll be using chi-square test, right? Statistics. The formula is whatever your observed frequency minus expected frequency, square of that divided by your expected frequency, right? So what is my observed frequency? my observed frequency is for this cell is 5 female 5 student who are watching less than 5 hours in a week, right? Minus my expected frequency is 7 female student less than 5 hours in a week, so they watch less than 5 hours in a week the social media, or spend less than 5 hours in a week on social media. Square of that, right, divided by my expected frequency. Observed frequency minus expected frequency, square of that, divided by expected frequency. Right. So if I take a sum of this, everybody is getting this, or any other number you are getting? Just check the formula is correct or not. Okay. So this is where you will calculate the chi-square statistics. Chi-square statistics is chi-square. This symbol is chi. So chi-square is nothing but the summation of these numbers. Right? If I add this up, summation also. If I add this up, whatever number I am getting, so that is my chi-square statistics. So this chi-square statistics is 2.23. Right? Anybody got any other result? So once we have this information, we have to find out our test statistics, right? Test statistics, as you know, you need two information. One is alpha, which is 0.05, then your degrees of freedom. So in a chi-square statistics, in a cross tabulation, your degrees of freedom will become row minus 1. I have two rows, 2 minus 1, that is 1, multiplied by 3 minus 1. Why 3? Because I have 3 columns. So 1, 2, 3, 3 columns, 3 minus 1. I have 2 rows, female and male. So my degrees of freedom becomes 2. My alpha is 0.05. So I'll go here 0.05, get a 2 degrees of freedom. My critical value, sorry, here critical value will become 5.99. Right. So what will happen here? My chi-square statistics is less than critical value. So what will be the result?
All hypotheses cannot be rejected.
So whatever your null hypothesis, I cannot reject that. I cannot say that there is a relationship between gender and time spent on social media. So I'll say that null hypothesis cannot be rejected. Then obviously some additional, in case your null hypothesis gets rejected, there are additional some statistics we have to calculate: contingency coefficient, Cramer's B, phi coefficient, right? Cramer's B, phi, C, contingency coefficient. These are the three statistics we have to calculate. Then in the slide I have mentioned, I'll mention where to use what. So any of that we'll discuss in the next class. But at least this calculation part you should be clear, right? So do one thing, in the survey result you have another questions, number of orders they put on Amazon or different e-commerce site. So try to frame a research objective hypothesis, go step by step, make this calculation, creating a pivot table, make this calculation and see that what kind of results you are getting, right? We'll try to get that, we'll discuss that example in the next class, and we'll discuss this additional coefficients, right? So this Excel file I have already shared. This information should be, survey results should be available with you. Try to create a pivot table and try to get the data on like this tabular format, right? So this part is important. This part, writing the data in a proper format, is very much important, because in your, whenever you carry out a survey, information will collect like this. To change that to a correct format, to create a cross tabulation, that is something which you should be comfortable with if you are using this statistics. Okay, so try to create a cross tabulation for the other information which I have given: gender versus amount of or number of times or number of orders they put in a month in different e-commerce platforms, right? Whether there is a relationship between gender and number of orders put on e-commerce platforms. So that we'll discuss in the next class. Any last question? Okay, so if not, chalo, take care. Meet you on Monday.